Please join me in welcoming Michelle Sawatzky Koop.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been already great to see many familiar faces from Steinbach Credit Union, where I'm from, and I'm a proud member. And my family's been a member for years, and we got all that stuff, so I'm in the right place, and I feel good about that. I'm very happy to be here. I was contacted a while ago to come and speak this morning, and he said, come tell us your story and motivate us. And I said, okay, that I can do. Because I'm thinking about what I know about finances, and I have a membership at the Steinbach Credit Union, and you guys take care of me, so thank you. That's what I know. But I do know a bit about success, and I do know a bit about overcoming obstacles, and about making it no matter what, and about ways of doing that. Before I tell you my volleyball story, though, I'll give you a little bit of an idea of what I'm doing now, even though my introduction did say that. And I do work with Golden West Radio every morning. I do a morning show. I've done that for 10 years. I love it. My alarm going off at 4 o'clock in the morning, I've never loved. That's a small obstacle I get over every single day. But it's okay, because we have a good time. And I love doing it. It connects me to the community. I grew up right here in Manitoba, in Steinbach, and I will stay there, I think, for a long time. And it's really fulfilling to give back to the community that gave me so much in my life, and continues to do so. Now, as far as the twins goes, I mean, if I had more than an hour, I could tell you a lot about that. If you want to talk about overcoming obstacles, you find out at 20 weeks you're having 2 babies instead of 1. And then you actually have them. Now, some of you are going, yeah, little lady, I had twins and a toddler. I know. You might be out there, so I'm sorry. But the whole twins thing blew my socks off. I thought that whole volleyball thing was hard. And you'll hear my story, and the journey, it was a rocky one. But the first 3 months of me having twin boys, that's my next book I'm going to write. I haven't written one yet, but I always think I should write some, and that would be one. I may never, but I'd have a lot of stories to tell. 2 in the morning, keeping them alive? Yeah, that's scary. That's scary stuff. I would have way rather done 1,000 push-ups than do that at some moments. But anyway, so that's who I am now. And the story you're going to hear that I'm going to share with you about my volleyball keeps me going now, and it keeps me pursuing my goals to be the best mom I can be, to be the best on the radio that I can be, and to continue to see what else I can do yet in my life, to see what doors will open. And I'm pretty happy that that never ends, because that's pretty exciting. Before I begin my volleyball story, I brought a video, a DVD that CBC TV put together for us way back on the weekend that we qualified for the Olympics. March of 1996, we played at home. We hosted the Continental Cup. And you'll see me playing in that video, just to give you an idea of what I'm actually talking about. I'm number 8. I'm a good stretch shorter than a lot of my friends on the video, as you'll see. And one of the girls that speaks on the video, actually one of the first girls, well, the first girl's me, you're going to be able to tell. The next girl is a black girl that played on our team. Her name was Janice Kelly. She was one of the top 10 hitters in the world. Fantastic hitter. Next girl's from Alberta. Her name was Katrina Von Sass, probably our top player when we went to the Olympics. And the third girl is Diane Ratnick. She was our other setter. Setter was the position I played. It's just important because she went to the Olympics in '84, and she came back about 8 months before we left for Atlanta. So just to give you a little background, and for you to just see a little bit about what I'm talking about, what I did on the court. So enjoy. You know, you're a short little kid from Steinbach, Manitoba, and you went to play in the Olympics in 1996 in Atlanta, Georgia. So over the years, I've come up with an answer, and it's my story. I started playing volleyball in grade 7. You know, here in Manitoba, or here in Steinbach is when you start playing volleyball. Grade 7, you played on the junior high team, and actually I made the team with a bunch of grade 8 girls, so I was really proud. And the reason I started playing volleyball was that my big sister played. That was one reason. And the other reason was okay, back when I played in grade 7, there was no McDonald's in Steinbach. And so if we made the team, we went to a tournament in Portage La Prairie, and they had a McDonald's. So if I made the team, we'd go to the tournament, we'd go to McDonald's after, and that was a big treat for us small-town girls. It really was. Ironic that McDonald's would influence me enough to get me to try out for the volleyball team, but it did. And I was so excited to make the team, and I played because it was fun. I had no aspirations of being a great athlete. I had no aspirations of going to an Olympic Games. At that time, I think the Olympics was something that famous people did on TV, I was playing for fun, and I loved it. I went to volleyball camps at University of Manitoba and had a good time. Well, grade 9 rolled around, and the high school coach at the school in Steinbach, she approached me and she said, you know what? I think you should try out for the provincial midget team. What that is, it's like an all-star team for all girls in grade 9 and 10. I thought she was nuts. I said, you know what? That means that girls from Winnipeg are going to be there. Like, you want me to go there? Like, I'm just sort of playing this game and I kind of like it. And she goes, no, I think you have a good chance. I think you're pretty good at this game. So I said, okay, I guess I'll go. So I was terrified. I came into the city for a week. The tryout camp was a week long. And for that whole week, I gave everything I had to make the team. I just dug in as deep as I could and gave everything I had. Now, the way this coach was going to decide, or going to tell us whether we made the team or whether we hadn't, was he sent us home and he was going to give us a call. So my parents and I are waiting at the dining room table and the phone rings. And it's the coach. And he says to me, he says, Michelle, you're a really good kid. But you're not quite good enough and you're way too short to play volleyball. So he cut me. That was okay. I didn't really think I'd make that team anyway. So went on with my life, got into grade 10, and played on the junior varsity team. And that same coach said, you know what? You have another year under your belt. You should go back and try out for that provincial midget team again. It's okay. I kind of was a little more confident that year. And I went out to Winnipeg and I tried out for a week. And after the tryout camp was over, he sent us home and he was going to call us to tell us whether we'd made the team or whether we hadn't. Well, he called me, and he had a couple things to say. He said, Michelle, you're a really good kid. But you're not quite good enough, and you're still way too short to play volleyball. So he cut me again. Yeah, I probably cried a little that year, but I was okay, and I went on. Well, you play volleyball in the fall, right? And then in the off season, you can play club. To make these provincial teams, you really need to play club volleyball. You really need to play sport year-round to get really good. So I tried to play on some club teams in the city, for spring. Well, the problem was that none of the coaches in Winnipeg really wanted me on their team. But I got a call from one coach who thought I had some potential. And he said, you know what, you can play on my club team. So I'll take you from December till May, and we'll work out and we'll get you better. Okay. The only problem was his team was based in Verdun. That's about 4 hours from Steinbach, if you do, something like that. So I went to my mom and dad and I said, I really, really want to play and I think this is my only chance. And they said yes. They drove me to Verdun twice a week from December till May. Yeah, I almost get emotional when I talk about that. I've got kids now and I've already asked my mom, I said, please don't tell me I have to do that. She said, oh, you will. And she had a big smile on her face. She'll get me back yet. So I trained as hard as I could, and I got to the next summer, my summer after grade 11. To top it all off, we'd won for the provincial championship in grade 11, not of the biggest schools, but of the AA-sized schools. And I was set to go. I was ready. I'd gotten into the system. I'd played club. I'd played year-round. For sure, this was my year. So I went to the tryout camp, and it was a week long. And by the second day, the coach pulled me aside. And he said, hey, Michelle, I got something to tell you. And I'm thinking this must be pretty good. Because if he's pulling me aside, he's finally seen the light, right? And he needs me. No, not really. He saw the same light the other coach saw. The light over my head, because I'm so small. And he said a couple of things. He said, Michelle, we really appreciate you and all your effort. But I got to tell you, you're just not quite good enough. And at this level, you're still too short to play volleyball. And he looked me in the eye and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, don't bother coming back. So I took my stuff off and I tried not to let him see me cry. And I called my mom to pick me up. And I decided to quit volleyball forever. I'd had enough. Good. You know what? Right, ladies? When we're in grade 9, we're done growing. I don't know. You guys probably grew after high school. My husband was 6 feet when he graduated. Now he's 6'4". How did that happen? You know, I believe in God. I do. I prayed every day for many years. Was not in his plan. I'm still 5'6" right here today. Probably shorter now that I'm shrinking. But anyway, so I went home and decided to quit volleyball forever. And that was good for me. It was fine. 3 weeks after I so adamantly decided to quit volleyball forever, my phone rang. And what do you know? It was that coach who just 3 weeks earlier had told me not to bother coming back. And he had a problem. See, both the girls that played my position on his team within 1 week had decided to quit. And he was a little desperate at the time. And he needed a setter. So he said, please, would you come? You'd play, you would start, you'll play all the time. For about 30 seconds, I wanted to just tell him what he could do with that position. But 30 seconds later, 16 years old, I was excited. I canceled all my summer plans. I moved into Winnipeg, and we started training 6 hours a day with the provincial team. I decided to do 2 things that summer. I pretty much guaranteed wasn't going to grow. Okay. So I had to do something with something I had, my head and my heart. So I decided, as you all know, the saying, to be the best that I could be. But to really know what that means. Not better than anybody else. I'd already been told enough that I wouldn't be. So I had to keep it within myself, to be the best I could be. And the second thing I decided was that I would try harder than anybody else. And that became my passion. Every minute of every practice of every day, I walked into the gym, and I didn't care how many girls were 6 feet tall. I knew that if they did 50 push-ups, I could do 55. I knew that if they ran till they almost threw up, I could run till I did. I knew that, and I did it a few times. So I had my foot in the door, and I started training hard, and that was great. Then I got recruited to play at the University of Manitoba, thanks to being on that provincial team and all that. Now, the coach, of course, had a little meeting with me, and he told me, Michelle, to be on this team at this level, because you're pretty short, you got to do a couple things. Well, we trained about 3 hours a day at university after school from 4 till 7. And for me to be on the team, I had to have 3 individual practices, is what they called it. So 3 mornings a week, 2 hours each morning, me and the coach walked to the gym, and we just set the volleyball. You saw a little bit of it on the video, but setting the volleyball, you take that white thing and you set it up in the air. You set it up as perfect as you can so that your hitters can hit it and get all the glory. But I'm not bitter. It's just how it is. We'd walk into the gym sometimes, and the coach would pick a brick on the wall, and he would say, okay, you hit that brick 1,000 times before you leave here today. And I did it over and over and over and over. And I missed a lot of first classes in university. But you knew what I knew about that? I knew that nobody else in Canada was doing that. And I knew that that was pretty much qualified as trying harder than anybody else and being the best I could be for my team. My time at university, we won 3 national championships. You can play on a university team for 5 years. For 2 of those years, I had the great honor of being named the best player in Canada. It was an incredible time for me. And I walked to the gym 3 mornings a week in my first year, in my second year, my third year, my 4th year, and my 5th year. I never stopped. I couldn't stop because it was those thousands of balls every day that was exactly the reason that I was where I was. We had a fantastic run at University of Manitoba, and I'll never forget finishing my 5th year and, ready to go on to the next step. And in Canada, after university sport, pretty much the next step is national team. So that was my next goal. That was my next dream. I actually dared to dream it. The way you get to try out for the national team of Canada is you get a letter of invitation. And on this letter it says, congratulations, you have the honor of trying out for the national women's volleyball team of Canada. Boy, did I want that letter. Oh, it's all I wanted at that moment. And I got a phone call from the coach of the national team. And he said, Michelle, I have your letter, but I want to meet with you first. I hated that. I felt like saying, let me guess, you want to tell me I'm 5'6"? Some of you have only known me for what, 20 minutes? You already know. I didn't need to hear that again, but when the coach of the national team asks you to meet, you pretty much salute and you go. So I went. We met at the old spaghetti factory, right here in Winnipeg. We sat across the table from each other, and it wasn't a very long meeting. He's sort of a scary guy, good guy, but sort of scary when you play for him. We're fine now, but so we're sitting across the table from each other, and he says this to me. He says, Michelle, I'm a straightforward kind of guy. I want you to know your chance of making my team, so you don't come into the tryout camp with any unreal expectations. I gotta be honest. He had a pretty good university career, but I don't know, 3 national championships, is that pretty good? I don't know. Anyway, I had a little problem with that, but I didn't say anything. He said, so here's the deal. University level's here, international level way up here. You are this tall, and everybody who plays international volleyball is this tall. And he looked me in the eye and he told me something I'll never forget. He said, Michelle, at 5'6" tall, you'll never play international volleyball. But I feel like I owe you this tryout, so I'd like you to come. Yeah, he gave me the letter I wanted. But I stood up and I shook his hand and I said, thanks, but no thanks. I took the letter and I threw it away, which is a real bummer because it'd be good in my scrapbook right now, but anyway. I threw it away. I'd heard that, been there, done that. I knew the drill. So I decided to go on with the rest of my life. I'd graduated from university with a Bachelor of Music, and I was going to do the master's thing, and I was going to leave volleyball behind me. It was cool. It was good. I'd done something else, and I'd spent 5-6 hours in the practice room every night on the piano as well. It wasn't like that was a bad second choice. So I thought I would go and do that, and it didn't matter. I could have been 3 feet tall and still been a pianist. So I decided to move on and do that. It was all good. It was all good. Until those influential people in your life get a hold of you. And they're right. Ken Bentley, the University of Manitoba coach, the guy who walked with me to the gym all those mornings, all those years? Yeah, him. He called me and he said, Michelle, I hear you're not going to try out for the national team. I said, how can you not go? I said, do you know how many girls would just die to have a letter like that just to have a chance to try out? I remember saying to him, I'm like, Ken, the guy said never. It's not like a 60-40 chance here. We're not even talking 90-10. I don't know a lot, but I know what never means, And, he's the guy picking the team. So, I don't really see the point. He says the point is you have the opportunity, and you could go and have 3 of the best weeks of your volleyball life, and then move on. So I thought, well, 3 weeks. This guy put a lot of time into me, right? So I figured, okay, for him, I could go. And it'd be great. It would be great. Because I'm not supposed to make the team anyway. So if you've ever played any sport, you know that when the pressure's off, you're amazing. Am I right? Totally amazing. You can't miss, right? And let me tell you, he wasn't watching me. He knew already his decision on me. So, I thought, I could go play with the best players in Canada, get a cool t-shirt, usually got a couple free ones, Canada national team tryout, and then move on with my life. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go, and I'm not going to care, and I'm going to have fun. So I went. And the first day was incredible, was great. I had fun, I did. It didn't matter. I was serving aces and digging everything, and it was absolutely an incredible time. And then I went back the second day, and I don't know what happened, but I looked around the gym, and I absolutely knew I could make the team. I just knew it. Something inside me all of a sudden just went, I don't care you said never. Because you know what? I knew he'd seen me play, and I knew he knew I was 5'6". But you know what he hadn't seen? He hadn't seen me practice every day. I forgot that before. Hey, when I decided not to come, I forgot that he'd never seen me every day. So, being from rural Manitoba and all, I decided, those little burrs that stick on your pants when you go out in the forest, and they're really hard to get off. I decided that I would become the burr on his pants. And we would just have to see if he could get rid of me. So, was I facing a mountain or what? Never mind, when I was on this court, he was usually over there. So I had a bit of a job ahead of me. The hardest part about that decision that day was that I couldn't quit anymore. Darn it, quitting's easy, you know? Just have fun, you sit back, whatever, do whatever you want. And when you decide not to quit anymore, you have to try again. You have to dig down somewhere that you never even knew existed and try again. And so I did. For 3 weeks, I gave everything I had to make that national team. I did everything I had to show him something that he hadn't seen before. Now, the good news about the end of that 3 weeks is that I made the team. But there were always conditional things on my making the team. And he said to me, well, you know what? We need a second setter right now for about 3 months. Then in July, a taller girl from Calgary is going to come and take your place. But if you could stay for 3 months, we'd really appreciate it. Oh, it's summer. Okay. So in July, this tall girl from Calgary did come. I was 23 at the time. She was 18. That hurts even more, let me tell you. So she came, and she was tall, but she was too young. She didn't last very long, and her shoulders were giving her trouble after about a week, so he sent her back, and he asked me to stay till October. In October, we were flying to Poland. We were playing in a World Cup there, and we needed a second setter. Then after we got back from Poland, there was a tall girl from Ontario who was going to come and take my place. So I finally got up my nerve, and I asked him for a meeting. And I said, here's the deal. You need to keep me on the team for a full year. Next spring, we have tryouts again, and you can cut me on the first day. But I can't stay till October and then get cut. He actually took a night and a whole day to think about that. He came back to me and he said, fine, you can stay. But when she comes, you're the third setter. I'm like, yes, sir, I hear you. So I stayed, and I had my very little foot in the door. I got all the size 7 shoes, because they were all size 12. Anyway, that's an aside. It's not really that important part of my story. So I stayed on that team. So that was May of '93 is when I started my time on the team, and I stayed on the team for a year. At the end of that year, we went to the United States, and we were playing in a tour against them. We never did very well against the USA until near the end of my 4 years on the team. So at that time, we were there, and my job was sitting on the bench. I sat right next to the coach, and I took notes. And I was really good. I was very motivated, and I took very good, neat notes. Whatever he said, I wrote down. That was my job. And we were down 8-1 in the third game in a best-of-5. And he put his hand on my knee pad, and he looked at me, and he said, well, do you want to go in? I was like, whoa, sure. So I went in, and we won the game. And we won the fourth game. We lost in 5. The next night, he put me in, and we won in 5. And it turned out to be a great tour for us. Something happened to our team, and we started to gel. We got back to Winnipeg, and the coach and I had a little meeting, and he said, well, I guess you're the starting setter on the national team. But let me tell the other girls first before you go and tell everybody. So I went to a very, very quiet room, and I called my mom and dad. And we cried together because I was the starting setter on the national team. It was a fantastic, fantastic time. And I stayed the starting setter on the national team till March of '96, when you saw us play right there. And we qualified for the Olympic Games. I'll never forget that set when I ran to the corner and fell down and set it all the way outside. I'd practiced that set more than 2 million times. And that's when it counted. So we got on the plane, and we left for the Olympics, about a month early. Now, remember I told you about Diane. She was the setter that came and joined us 8 months before the Olympics. So we'd had our starting lineup together for about 3 years. And so we're going off to the Olympics, and I'm the starting setter, right? And it's all good, and that'd be a great end to my story. It's not quite over yet. We get to the Olympics, and as I said, it's about a month left, right? So we're training, and we have a meeting after one of our training sessions, and the coach had made a decision. He said, girls, I don't think we can compete at the Olympic Games with a setter who's only 5'6" tall. So I would be sitting, and she would be playing. He'd never told me before this team meeting that this was his plan. I was blown away. And I went back to my room, and it took me about 2 hours not to punch a hole in the wall. Generally not recommended for a setter when your hands are really what you use. But I felt like it. You know what? I felt like with everything in me, I wanted to fly home for about 2 hours. I'd had it. You know what? After all that extra time, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that 5'6" really makes that much of a difference? And then I calmed down a little and took a little more time. And then I remembered something. It wasn't about me. I was on a team. What have I been thinking? It's not about me. Never mind. I'm at the Olympic Games. Really, I'm going to be at the Olympic Games and be bitter. No way. No way. So I decided something that day. And I did say it to myself out loud, but I want you to know I don't talk to myself a lot. But I looked myself in the mirror and I said, well then, you'll have to be the best bench player in the whole world. Okay? As the role I was given, I would be the best at it. How do you do that? Well, we had about 3 more weeks to train. And when you're not the starting setter or on the starting lineup, you're on the second side. And your job is to make that starting lineup as good as it can be, right? So the harder I would work, the better she would get. So I did that, and it was great. We got to the site of the Olympic Games, and we went through accreditation and everything. And you know when you arrive at the Olympics, you're really quite famous. For about 2 weeks, you're really quite famous. And they give you lots of free stuff. And it's kind of ironic that when you go into the food tent, which is about 5 times bigger than this room, there's free food everywhere, including McDonald's. 24 hours a day, you could just walk up and get a Big Mac. Of course, our coach didn't let us, but when we were done, we went to town. Yeah, I tell kids that, eh? There's motivation to train for the Olympics or whatever. Anyway, it was filled with memories. You guys, there was famous people there, you know? We're in the food court. I think that's why that was my favorite place, you know? Because everyone has to eat. Ha! Newsflash. Even the fastest people in the world eat meat, potatoes. I don't know. They do. They really do. It was great for me to see that. You know, even Bill Clinton came through the thing. Now, I stayed out far away, but he came. Just to be sure. But he came through to see us. You know, like people like that. Like, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger came and premiered his movie, Eraser, with Vanessa Williams. Like, he could have just shown us the movie, but he actually decided to come himself. He walked about 2 feet in front of me, and he's not that big, guys. Don't worry. He really isn't. They make him look bigger in the movies. Hootie and the Blowfish came and did a concert for us. It was really neat. The best U.S. gymnasts, I got their autographs. I got pictures of athletes and autographs. I was not too cool to realize that I would probably never be at the Olympic Games again, at least not as an athlete. I was surrounded by the best in the world. As I said, I have many memories. I will share my very best memory with you of the Olympic Games. And it was when we played our first match. We warmed up in the Omni Coliseum. It sat 25,000 people. There weren't 25,000 people there, maybe 10. But this gym was huge. I'd never played in a gym like that. And we warmed up, and as they do at the Olympics, it's all about pomp and circumstance. So they line you up in your tracksuits, out in the side, in the corner. And they line you up according to height, by the way. So the short people get to run in first. Anyway, so I'm standing there, and we're playing Cuba. Okay, just a tiny background. Cuba's, in 1996, best women's volleyball team in the world for years. They won in 84, 88, 92, 96. They just won all the time. So we get to play them first. Lucky Canada, but whatever. So we're lining up, and we're going to play them, and a foot away from me are the 12 best volleyball players in the entire world. And I'm standing there, looking at them and looking out at the court, and the Olympic music starts to play. And you know it when you hear it. And the announcer said, as long as I live, I don't know if I'll ever be able to say this without getting a little emotional, but the announcer said, and now the Olympic team from Canada. And then I got to run in. You know, when everyone that I thought knew everything about volleyball told me I'd never do it. They didn't say maybe. They didn't say you got a good chance, kid. They said, you're not going to do it. We owe you something, but we don't owe you the Olympics. No, nobody owed me the Olympics. I had to go out and get them. And I ran into that game, and I'd like to remind you that I didn't play 1 minute. I sat on the bench by my coach, and I was so proud. So proud to be a part of a team, and so proud to wear the maple leaf on my back. Now, as the Olympics continued, we were doing bad. We were doing bad. We were losing. In the history, Canadian women's volleyball never won a game, the Olympics. Never, ever. Not a game. Never mind a match. Never a game. We're playing our third match against Russia. And the tallest girl on the Russian team was 6'9". So my coach had a point. I was short. So we're down 8-1. And I'm taking notes, right? Good ones. And he put his hand on my knee and he said, we're down 8-1. Do you want to go in? And I knew I only had to play for him for about like 5 more days. So I looked at him and I gathered up quite a bit of nerve, and I looked at him and I said, this is the Olympic Games. You don't think I want to go in? So he put me in and we came back, but it wasn't enough. We lost by 3 points. I played the rest of the tournament. We hadn't won a game. We're playing our last match. We're playing Peru. It's our chance to finish 9th if we beat them. I had the honor of having that maple leaf on and playing that entire match. And the final point of the match, in the best of 5, we went 5 games with them. And the power hitter hit the ball out way over my little hands. And we won. We made a little bit of history that day. I came down from that block and I took my knee pads off and I took my shoes off and I knew where I was. I was at the top of a mountain that I had climbed for years, and I had made it. And the view was pretty nice. But it wasn't nice because we were lucky, and it wasn't nice because it was nice because we clawed our way up there. And I'll never forget it. I will never forget it. So I am here today with this message of motivation. And I know you'll probably never play volleyball, and that's okay. But what you do every day is just as or way more challenging than what I did. And every day you may have people telling you that you ain't gonna do it. And I can't tell you exactly how, but I can tell you that I can, because I've been there. And it happened for me. And I'm still 5'6". And I'm still from Steinbach, Manitoba. Thanks.